You like who you are. You like the person you are right
Yes.
now. I feel it.
Yes.
I know that. So the question is, what are these experiences that have shaped you? Would you be willing to share some of that?
Yeah. So I will not tell you that much because some of the stories are in my upcoming book in the
Oh,
end of the year. So,
oh,
but I just
really?
give you one or two little moments.
Of course.
So, what shaped me? I think
Yeah.
one reason is you just angekratzt.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
just
I touched
you
on.
just
I
yeah,
touched.
yeah. You
Okay.
just touched it a little bit. So I'm a former Navy soldier and
Uh
former
huh.
Navy officer.
Yes.
So throughout this 12 year of experience, this that shaped a lot. That there are so many different stories. So just stay tuned.
Herzlich willkommen zum English Coach Podcast, präsentiert von trainingtree.de, die personalisierte Lösung im Bereich Erwachsenenbildung. Und jetzt dein Gastgeber. Er sagt zwar immer ich und dich, ansonsten ist sein Deutsch fantastisch. Ian-Antonio Patterson.
The planned purpose of this interview today was to explore the topic of diversity and the importance of the English language in international businesses and organizations. For this episode of the English Coach Podcast, I propose to our esteemed guest the following, and I quote: "My goal is to enrich the entire learning experience of my course participants and to offer them a way to stay in contact with the language. The podcast is not an English lesson. It's a conversation with relevance in English and a little German." End of quote. By now, however, the topic of diversity in all senses of the word and the importance of English in international spheres are already quite labored topics and well understood by most of us. So since this is my show and this is her stage, we both gave ourselves permission, and with good reason, to throw the plan to the wind and let the conversation unfold naturally along other parallels of our own professional practice. And instead, in the first part of this interview, we approached the following questions. How do you build bridges of understanding and agreement between all the parties involved in a training or coaching program? Who carries what responsibility? What is the importance and scope of reflection? What role does it play? What is the essential difference between training and coaching? And how is progress measured? Who gives you permission to be successful at your own target skill? And who gets to tell you who you are? So without further ado, our guest for today, leadership coach and past officer in the German Navy, empathetic, authentic, practicing professional in her field, author of her own book, LinkedIn creator, Ms. Jennifer-Roch. Fantastic, fantastic. All right. So, again, I am so happy that you're here. I am honored to have you on my show as a guest. You know, the English Coach podcast tries to, as I always say, add a splash of color and life to the learning experience of my participants. And I'm happy to have you on the show today.
I am happy to be with you in this show, and I'm looking forward what will happen, and I'm excited.
Good, good, good. Well, you know, me too. As I said, I want to keep it conversational. And, you know, the first thing, I just want to jump straight into it. Yes.
Yes.
I have I have researched you a little bit. I have asked Google who you are. Yes, I have. And I have checked some of your links. I've checked your website. I have even listened to a few of your videos on YouTube. And I don't want to really be the one who's just going to be asking you the same questions that everybody asks all the time. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to bore you with that. So I'm just going to go straight into this one. Building bridges.
Yes.
Building bridges. Now, let me just kind of frame this question for you a little bit. I did an episode recently about what customized language learning really means, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
that was my connection point. However, when you're approaching any kind of training or coaching program for anyone,
Yes.
there is what we call in German, and again, we're doing this for German listeners as well, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll be jumping between German and English. I think that's fantastic. Right. The first thing we do is try to figure out, and please correct me if I'm wrong, then the question, yeah. We have a, sag mal so, ein Zielvorstellung.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there is a kind of a Zielsetzungsprozess that
Mm-hmm.
happens with some kind of Befragung. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that can happen from the top, right?
Yes.
Where are we? Where do we want to be? How do we want to get there? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's one step. And then there is a kind of an endorsement that also has to happen bottom up. The people from the bottom also have to feel motivated to do this, to take
Yes.
part in this thing. So the first thing is then Zielsetzung. My question to you is in terms of this bridge building, which is the first step, you have to show the bridge what we're doing, where we want to go, and so on. How do you, from your experience, how do you factor in your personal goals? Yes, what is
Mm-hmm.
important to you? Because I know that you think about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
What's important to the firm itself
Mm-hmm.
and the employees? How do you balance these three things?
Yeah. So my goals are nearby my purpose. Everything what I'm doing is in relation to my purpose, in relation to my big five. So this is easy. It's all about the big thing behind. And therefore, I am in coachings, for example, I am kind of sparring partner to my clients. In addition to what we discuss with HR, for example, or what the goal of the company is, we define what to do in the coaching. And I already ask before starting a coaching if I'm free in my way with the coachee, for example, are there goals?
Hmm.
And in combination to this, I have to ask myself if this is something I can handle and if this is something I'm fine with my big five, for example. Or is the goal of the company something too strange and then I'm going to deny the offer?
I understand. Now, this big five that you talk about, maybe,
Yes.
later, if you want to tell me what this big five is, you can, but, we don't have to get into that now because that sounds like your personal thing. I sense that these are the things that are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct, right?
Yes, totally.
Okay. Now, I definitely recognize this framework that you're talking about that
Mm-hmm.
human resource gives. Yes, they tell you, well, I think you said how free you can be with the participants.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I recognize that also from my training planning. I recognize also the keyword you use there, sparring partner, because when I offer language training or coaching services, many of the people in leadership positions, they prefer to look at it that way. And this is also in adding to what you say, because they also give me the higher up they are, they also can give the framework within which or a definition of how they want to work.
Yeah.
And some of them tell me, I don't want any grammar rules. I want a sparring partner. Exactly that. They want someone to come in with context, someone who understands their work and
Mm.
is able to talk about their stuff in the language. Yeah,
Yeah.
their target language.
I think it is more a thing, and to define, is it more a coaching or is it more a training? In
Hmm.
a coaching, the responsibility is in any time in the hands of the coachee, and therefore the coachee is responsible to what we do and what he or she is doing after our coaching, and how he or she is going to do the things we spoke about. It's all about the responsibility. And during trainings, for example, the responsibility is in my hands as a trainer. I have the to-do list, for example,
Understood.
and just telling them what to do in which kind of step. And there's a huge difference between coaching and training, and I think most people don't really know about.
Absolutely. That could also be another similarity because, in terms of the training, I mean, I always say to people, I mean, this is not me being cynical, no,
Hmm.
but the same wisdom. This is actually me being quite optimistic. The same wisdom presents itself in different packages all
Hmm.
the time, again and again. And in terms of the training thing, training, we're in agreement because training is for a specific job
Yeah.
as far as I understand. And you are right in saying that it is more in your hands. Yes, if that's your
Yeah.
role,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it's more in your hands. Let's say the very simple learning to use an Excel sheet.
Yeah.
Yes, very clear, very measurable. The coaching thing, on the other hand, I also give the responsibility to the coachee for the most part. Yeah, whereas it's their, well,
Hmm.
let's say, engagement with the activities. It's like creating a room for learning to happen, and they decide whether they want to work with it or not.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And I mean, I also do coaching, not only training. Yeah, that's another thing we can agree on. But you know what? In coming back directly to what you said, the responsibility that you have, and it's true, a lot of people do not understand the difference between coaching and training. But again, from the little that I know about your work and how you do your work, and again also about the wisdom, a lot of learning processes involve a phase of input, and
Hmm.
then there's a phase of reflection, and then there's a phase of questioning and a kind of a feedback loop that
Yeah.
happens. It's the same constellation always.
Hmm.
Yes. Now, my question to you, from what I know about your work and how you've said that you do your work. Now, this reflection time,
Yes.
right, that always happens. How do you, as a coach, make sure that this time was used properly? And how do you measure it or check that the coachee has gone through this phase
Yeah.
the way they should?
So I think there are 2 points. The first one is how do I reflect myself, for example? And that's
Ah.
something I do after every session.
Hmm.
After every session, I sit for myself and ask, um, was it the way I wanted to handle this?
Hmm.
Was it the way it should go? What goes right? What goes wrong? For example, and why was it wrong? Or what? Who defines what is wrong? So just to reflect about the lesson.
Yes.
And the second part is at the end of every coaching. So not the lesson itself. So after the whole process. At the end of the process, we do something that's called in German Zielerreichung. So
Zielerreichung. Hmm.
yeah, so we have a look at the Zielerreichung, and I do ask the HR person, for example,
Hmm.
for itself, and then if there is some a leader above, to ask them what is their impression of
Hmm.
the coachee itself, and of course my own reflection on the process of the coachee. And after all, I sum up all the results and discuss it with the people who are involved.
Understood. Understood. I mean, that is also, well, I don't really see it as a problem. You obviously have a process that works for you. It makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. However, my challenge, which is still a challenge, is the subjectivity of it sometimes.
yeah.
And a lot of it is qualitative.
Mm.
So, that makes it very hard to be, let's say, measurable,
Yeah.
you know? And that's also something that I face.
It is, I think it is, it depends just all the subjective things depends on the feeling. And therefore, I'm going to ask the coachee, for example, in the beginning of a coaching session, what does he or she need to have a good session? And at the end of the session, I'm going to ask, how do you think about this session? So it's all about feelings during this process.
The feelings thing. No, it's okay. I'm all for feelings, yes. And I do have some burning questions that I really want to ask you on that. So coming back to what you just
Yes.
said about defining what is wrong and what they need and trying to establish their own measure of success before you even go into the training or coaching activity, right? Because this is something that you have documented and you can use it then somehow to measure later, yeah, and to compare what does success look like. But I know also that or I suspect that in terms of feelings and emotions, I suspect that you might say that there is no right and wrong when it comes to emotion.
Yes.
Is that
True.
correct?
Yeah. It is true. Emotions are never right or wrong. They're just there.
They're just there. Hmm. Oh my goodness. Well, I think that could be a topic for another show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I tend to agree with you. Yes, but coming to emotions and what they need, and I'm just gonna run off some keywords here because I really think that our topics are kind of close, and I'm also very interested. So, again, the topics coming again from what you just said. Who defines? Asking the question: Who defines what is wrong? The coachee saying upfront what they need and getting them to say that clearly is also
Yeah.
a challenge in itself sometimes. Yes. The framing of this question starts like this: I work also as a photographer.
Yes.
Yes, no, it's really a hobby that I mostly do for myself. I work with dancers, oriental dance, modern dance, sometimes also a little salsa or merengue, all sorts of stage performances. And it's a hobby really that I sometimes do in a professional way. Yeah. So let's just put it that way. And there are so many things that I have learned from photography. And coming again, this is really in connection to who defines what is wrong and what people need. The idea of self love,
Yes.
self value, self acceptance. Yes. The ego. Is the ego always bad? For
No.
example, it's just
No.
keywords here. Just
Yes.
keywords. It's not a question. It's not a question yet. Right? Um, Now, the question really is, how successfully am I going to be able to give a person energy in this regard, to let them feel, give them the permission to feel self love and feel self value and feel accepted, and also to give a little love to their ego,
Yeah.
you know? How am I going to convince someone to do that when it almost seems fashionable these days to always say, I can't do it, I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
yeah, and all these things? It's almost like a virtue. Yeah, as a photographers do it. Oh, ich bin nicht so gut. People say it all the time. Oh, my English is bad. I always
Yeah.
say to my people, never say your English is bad. Yeah. How do I give them permission to feel some self-worth?
Yeah. I think that sometimes it is good just to talk about this permission and just to take it away from the personal sphere. So just to think about who is telling something about permissions, for example. Who do you think you're gonna should ask for permission, or who do you think will say that this is the wrong way? And on the other hand, just to say, okay, look at yourself and what would your really, really best friend tell you in this situation? And think about that this really good friend is very, very open and with a warm heart, and in German it is called wohlwollend.
Wohlwollend. Okay. They have your
So
best interest at heart.
yeah, so I just ask Leo in the background, and who is very benevolent
Benevolent is also
or
good. Giving,
complacent.
generous.
It asks, who is a very complacent person to you? What would this person say to you in this situation? And this could be a mind changer. Just to have a look at this situation from a totally different view, from a person who is very, very, very wohlwollend,
Compassionate, you mean?
compassionate
Yeah, not
about you.
complacent. No. Compassionate. Hmm.
Yeah, so that can open my eyes.
I understand. Now, I am recognizing that to be a kind of a disassociation technique, is it?
It is kind of technique to get the person the permission to see situations from different points of views.
Okay.
So
Yes,
in
yes, yes.
in German it's called, or I think you can say it in English as well. It's kind of a meta perspective. It's kind of the bird is looking on the situation.
I recognize it though from, well, what I said earlier about the wisdom, the same wisdom coming back with different packaging. I think in another school of thought, I could be wrong, but they might call that a kind of a disassociation where you kind of step outside of yourself and look at yourself. Or
Yeah,
again, this other perspective could be another person looking at you
yeah.
or yourself looking at you.
It's
Yes.
both. It's
So,
every
yeah.
yeah, both or all the three of them are useful. It depends on the coachee,
Hmm.
what it needs, and it depends, or in other way around. So I think we're quite clear in this situation that we're just working with coachees who are in a good mental health condition. So if there is any illness, it is not my point of job to do. Then they really have to go to a doctor first, for example, and to clear the things up. So coach is never allowed to do some things that are for psychotherapeuten, for example.
Well, actually, what you've done there, you have actually killed my second question. Yes, you have. Because, again, in terms of this stepping out of oneself and trying to see oneself or to see oneself, as you said, from a different perspective, maybe the eyes of a friend or someone who is
Mm,
compassionate, someone who has your best interest at heart. There is also, and this comes also again from what I suspect that you have thought about before, when someone recognizes or when you recognize that this person is just not ready to be told that they are good at something.
yeah.
There's the idea of self-sabotage. Yes, I'm not ready for success. I'm not ready to carry the badge of being a
Mm,
good English speaker. For
yeah.
example, I prefer to always, or a good photographer, I would prefer to always say, oh, I'm just a beginner, because then I can hide behind that,
Mm,
right? When you recognize that somebody's just not ready to be confronted with the badge of good or valuable or
yeah.
competent, what do you do? Do you yeah, you step back and say, okay, fine, you're not ready, or do you say see a therapist, or wow.
No, it depends on the situation. So,
Oh, of course.
in my intuition is quite good in things if I think there are mental health issues. So therefore, I'm going to ask in German it's called ICD-10. It's a kind of compendium, a health compendium with special questions about different mental health issues as well as normal health issues, for example. So and therefore I just prepared some of the Fragebögen and let the coachee fill it out by him or herself. So this could be a first hint, for example. And on the other hand, if there are no issues in this way, just go a little step back and concentrate on the things which works. up to
Mm-hmm.
this moment, and just to fix this situation and then go in a smaller step forward.
Understood. Now, I'm very interested in all of that, because I mean, you're a coach of leaders,
Yes.
and I find it fascinating. I'm a people person. I look for interaction with people. I love to talk to people. I love to see people blossom, and it gives me a lot of fulfillment to see people come into their own or even develop a new personality by learning a new language. I really like
Mm.
that. It's a deep fulfillment that comes from my family. My father is a teacher, was my mother was a teacher as well. So it's like if there's anything in my blood, that's what it is.
Mm.
But so I'm really feeling inspired by what you're saying right now, and that actually does lead me to the next question. Also, in connection with what you just said, in terms of this check that you do, there are actually two questions. The first one is this what do you call it? EC, the mental health
ECD. Yeah, I don't know the
ECD.
long title. ECD 10.
It's
ICD 10.
it's fine. I will research it. But
It's
the
ICD
question
minus 10.
ICD minus 10. All right, is this a standard kind of checkbox thing that you do before the same way you check the learner type?
No, before starting a coaching,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to ask my coachee, and they have to write it down in our contract, that they are in a normal mental health condition, so that there are no mental health issues, for example.
Okay.
And therefore, I'm just focusing on this point. If I have to rethink on special topics which are too too strong related
Yeah, yeah.
to any health issues
Yes.
I read about, for example, or I saw, and therefore I'm just going to double check this at a special point, but not with every coachee, for example.
Understood. Understood. So it's just a kind of what do you call it? It's a due diligence, a kind of well, that is built into the contract. You give them the responsibility first to declare that
Yes,
there are no.
from the first point of contact, the responsibility is in the hand of the coachee.
Wow, that comes right back to one of your principles that you mentioned earlier. All right. So I appreciate that. Thank you. However, in terms of checkboxes to start a coaching process, right?
Mhm.
Learning type is also something that you are familiar with, and
Mhm.
you know about it. I know about the kinesthetic type, the type who needs to be involved physically,
Yes.
and the visual type, which is clear, and the auditive type, which is also clear. Is that, however, something that you check at the beginning?
The preferences,
The
or what do you mean?
preferences, the type of person, the kind
Yeah.
of thing that they would be stimulated by.
Yeah, but for me, it is quite important to make it not that complicated in the beginning. It's not kind of okay, just have a look at if this is a visual or an auditive or kinesthetic type, for example, or just to rethink if this one is someone who's quite focused on, in German, it's Zahlen, Daten, Fakten,
Mm-hmm.
or if this one is a more emotional person. All things comes or get the importance on this point when it is needed.
Understood. I like that approach, the Sachlichkeit. I like that, being pragmatic, you could say. Yeah, because, I made that mistake once as well at the beginning when I just started out in my whole coaching practice.
Yeah.
I went into all these check boxes, all these long things, scientific,
Yeah.
and it's also a lot of work. I mean, there are people who are mixed. Some days, for example, I am more of an auditive learner, and another day I am
Mm-hmm.
more kinesthetic, or maybe for certain
Yeah.
things I am kinesthetic.
Yeah.
Yes, some days I'm purely visual. Yes, as a
Yeah.
photographer.
So we're on the point again. Who just tells you're just allowed to have one
That is that
preference, for
is
example?
exactly that is exactly my point as well. You see, we're heading straight to another question. Who decides who you are? And so I think that was probably also something, the multiplicities of personalities. that we have. All of us have them.
Yeah.
Do we have to say, das bin ich nicht? Or are we allowed to say, ja, das bin ich nicht immer?
Yeah, or das bin ich nicht heute.
Ah, das bin ich nicht heute. Das geht ja auch, ne? As long as you can justify it and give a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, I mean, I don't know. I think only politicians are not allowed to do that, right?
Yeah, so yeah. But do I have to permit it for myself, or am I just able to be as who I am? Sometimes kind of childish, and on the other hand, maybe sometimes someone who's quite straight ahead, and I don't have to be either or. I'm allowed to be a little bit of all of this. The key is to stay authentic.
Mm-hmm. You are now listening to episode 29 of the English Coach podcast, where learning doesn't have to feel like work, and where I help you to help yourself not only to learn, but also to hold on to the things you've learned. This episode is self-sponsored and takes my usual relaxed, accessible, human approach to your learning experience. And while we're at it, I just want to say again, please remember the independents out there, the artists and creators, trainers and coaches, the same living, breathing people working every day behind the screens everywhere. Use the hashtag #HelpTheCreators if you want to help the creators. There are so many ways to engage with the content and the creators themselves, also privately. So be sure to check out the links to our pages directly in the show notes. Share, tag, tell a friend, comment, or ask a question if you must. If your ultimate goal, whatever it might be, involves using your acquired skill to talk to people, then talk to people. In this, the second half of episode 29, we broach the following questions. How is return on investment for training or coaching initiatives perceived? What is the value of these returns and how are they measured? What are some of the things that help to form a practicing leadership coach? What is the current trend as it relates to rethinking leadership and its role in facilitating motivation and fulfillment for employees? And last but not least, how do veritable contrasts coincide? The Lived Experience is a series all about success stories of users of English as a second language. This episode 29 speaks for itself, but still be sure to check out the other episodes in the series over there at www.trainingtree.de/podcast. My aim is to encourage you to use all the tools at hand, ranging from independent media like this, human interaction, formal and informal classes, paper notebooks, language apps, art, personal hobbies, and reading, that all help to enrich your overall language learning experience. Naturally, I also invite you to be more receptive to context and purpose, as they quite likely differ in every single language exchange. This is not a formal lesson. Would it be good to improve your English? Now quickly in German. Dies ist kein formaler Unterricht im klassischen Sinne. Wäre es gut, dein Englisch zu verbessern? Bist du daran interessiert? Besuch mal www.trainingtree.de und benutze das Kontaktformular. Oh my goodness, you're actually giving me one of those goose pimple or goosebump moments right now because you're saying something that we're living in an organic, changing, evolving, unfolding world. Yes. And why are we gonna, give ourselves these stamps and limit ourselves to being one way all the time? That's why I work with dance as well, because dance for me, and a lot of dancers that I've worked with, I've discussed it with them before. I've worked with lots of good trainers, and dance for me it depicts a kind of existence that all of us should give ourselves space to live, the chance to move, the chance to change, the room to adapt to
Yeah.
situations. And unfortunately, many people limit themselves because, I mean, these days we are, all trying to optimize in whatever direction.
Mm.
Yeah, beat everything into a straight line, even though even the mathematician will tell you that maybe a straight line doesn't really exist in nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we all have to still work with systems and measurable systems as well. Yeah,
Yes.
because I mean I think that's where being scientific begins, with being able to use
Mm.
historical data and Excel sheets and numbers and all of that. So we have to an extent, work with the lines, no?
Yeah, it depends on the goals of the coachee or of the person who's I don't know what is engagieren in English.
Who is commissioned to do the
Yeah,
job, you mean?
ja, ne, who engagiert mich? Also wer?
Oh, who hires you, like the
Yeah.
Auftragsgeber?
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
depends on the goals of the person who hires me,
Yes.
and some of them needs scientific data, for example. And some of them, so it's a kind of I think you can compare it to the thing what study of Manchester found out in 2012, and they said that the invest or the return on coaching is 6 times higher than the invest, and the return is what every company, every person defines for themselves, for example. So it could be a return on innovation, or a return of mehr Umsatz, for
Yes, of
example.
course. Of course. Of
Or
course.
it could be a lower rate of fluctuation
Yes.
of the employees, for example. And there it depends on what is important for you. It depends on what is important for the person who hires me, and therefore I just have to focus on made it more reliable or measurable.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. That is definitely clear. I agree with you. The return on investment for coaching. Well, you said it's 6 times. I haven't seen that
Higher, yes,
statistic.
six
Higher than
times
6 times.
higher than its investment.
Mm-hmm. That is fun. That's 600%. Is it 600%? One, two, three,
Yeah.
four, five, six. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Well, it depends. It depends. I mean, people will accept the value of certain things, well, depending on whether they themselves can see the value or not. And I guess it's your responsibility also as well to help them to see that value,
Yeah.
what it's worth to them.
So to be honest, most of the person who hires me have a quite a big pain to this moment, up
Mm-hmm.
to this moment. Okay, they see there are things that didn't work
Mm-hmm.
in the past, and they just thought about, okay, we have to change something without really knowing what something could be. And that's
Yes.
the point where I come in, just to find out what is this something, and then to have a look at it. Okay, how can we change this something?
That is definitely a pain point. I mean, from my point of view as well, I also try to anchor. So to say, to fix, for example,
Oh,
the rate that I ask for to what they hope to get from the training. So if I can say,
yeah,
well, I mean, statistically, you're going to get 600% return. Yes.
yeah,
And this 600% could be, I don't know, 500,000 euros. And then we both agree, yes, I mean, after this
yeah,
training, when everything is right, you can imagine that your company will be so much more efficient that you're
mm,
gonna be able to get a 500,000 increase in revenue. And that is
yeah,
clear. And that's agreed. Then you say, okay, fine, I'll take 10% of that. you know and
yeah. It
then
is this way.
so it's hard because as though they also don't want you to know, well, I don't know, maybe they don't want you to know exactly what the return is that they anticipate from your training, because then you would have something to base a good rate on.
Yeah. A
Could
simple
be.
question could be what is the thing you expect at least? Or what should be, or what is the point that should be in another way than before starting this coaching?
Yes, what should change? What should be
Yeah.
different? Yes. But I mean, if something changes, then you can always reduce it. We're talking about business here. You can always reduce that thing that changed
Yeah.
to the value of it.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
every
so
person should understand that you cannot change any other person. You
hmm
can change yourself and see how others change throughout your own change.
yes, you change the world by changing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I understand. I agree. I agree. Yes, but that's probably another topic for another day. We don't want to get too much into the pricing thing because, as you said difficult, and that could mean many things. But you know what, Jennifer, I am again so happy that you're here, and let us. I want to just focus a little bit though on, or remind myself that
Mhm.
we're trying to give value to both our audiences, and I don't want to bore you with the normal questions. Yeah. So I don't want to, I don't want to do that, but I do have one question about, your work in the army, but I think I'll leave that for the end. The next, the next thing that I want to ask you is about, and perhaps this is an opening, what are the experiences that you would say have shaped you to be who you are, to be the person who you love to be? You like who you are, you like the person you are right
Yes.
now. I feel it,
Yes.
I know that. So the question is, what are these experiences that have shaped you? Would you be willing to share some of that?
Yeah. So I will not tell you that much because some of the stories are in my upcoming book in the
Oh,
end of the year. So,
oh,
but I just
really?
give you one or two little moments.
Of course.
So, what shaped me? I think
Yeah.
one reason is you just angekratzt.
Yeah,
You
okay.
just
I touched
you
on.
just
I touched
yeah,
it.
you
Okay.
just touched it a little bit. So I'm a former Navy soldier. I'm a former Navy officer.
Yes.
So throughout this 12 years of experience, this that shaped a lot, and that there are so many different stories. So just stay tuned
Mm-hmm.
and have a look at the book to read more of it. And one other big point was after leaving the Navy, and I just was in a situation that I felt to be a player in my own video game.
Ah.
It looked like me,
Mm-hmm.
it sounded like me, and it was a bit of a feeling that could be me, but I just had the idea to stood next to myself, not to be myself.
Mm.
I couldn't really say who I am, who's or what of the things I'm doing are those one who or which was expected from
Mm-hmm.
myself. What kind of the feelings I had were my own feelings, or which one were trained throughout the period of the 12 years, for example, and things like that. And there was a situation I didn't felt comfortable in.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to change something, and went on my own trip
Mm-hmm.
through the, I don't know what the English word, it's Persönlichkeitsentwicklung,
Ah, it's kind
personal
of
development.
the journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, maybe something
Yeah,
like this.
that
And
sounds really nice.
and yeah, just found out who I really am, and found out that the whole toughness is there, and it is good that it is there, but I'm allowed to have all the soft feelings as well, for example.
Mm.
And that was that was a huge discovery back to
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Yeah, Yeah, the things that have formed you and that have made you who you are. I am looking forward to that book. I will admit that I tend to read nonfiction when I do read. So those are
Yeah.
exactly the kinds of books that I like. I am looking forward. And as soon as, do you have a title already?
I'm going to ask my community for some for their ideas, and I have some ideas as well. For example, and just
Mm-hmm.
we'll find out which favors most.
Mm-hmm.
I think I will start the first round this week,
Yes.
and yeah. But the main topic is about it is about purpose and leadership and my story behind, and it's a combination. Why it is important to build up a community inside a company who believes in in the same goals, who believes in the same purposes, for example.
I understand. You know, I mean, a lot of us, but we don't have to say corona. I tend to just say it. But we
It.
are, yeah, it's it. Right. I did a whole series on surviving it with some very interesting personalities. Also, some from your network, you know, but maybe you
Mhm.
get a chance to have a listen. But we've all been called to rethink leadership
Yes,
these days. And
absolutely.
yeah, you know, I also know that you are of the opinion, and I am also of the opinion that, for example, the same way I work with adults, yeah, and
Mhm.
I can't really teach anybody anything, and I try to create a space that facilitates learning. I hope
Mhm.
that learning happens, especially in the coaching scenario. I just create a
Mhm.
space, and hopefully learning happens. And whether that happens or not is the decision. They're not children, yes, these are
Mhm.
adults. They decide if it happens or not.
Mhm.
And it's a similar way of looking at leadership. You know, we can go into comparing the leader and the manager, but I suspect from also, you know, what Google told me about you, that the leader facilitates motivation and fulfillment. He does not himself or herself make it happen. They just create the space for that to happen.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. It is important to understand that you cannot motivate others. You cannot motivate your employees, for example. You're able to create circumstances in which your employees feel comfortable, feel to be one piece of a big cake, and that all of them are needed to go forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, I mean, you're really touching on some good points here. I like the conversation flavor and flow of what we're doing today. And I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jennifer. The last thing that I have right now, and this is also tying into what you just said about, you know, feeling appreciated. Yes, being part of the whole cake, you know, being part of the puzzle, be feeling self-worth, the motivation and all these things, making sure people feel as if they want to help and move towards a common goal. All of this comes to this question that I have now for you, which is probably gonna even touch a little more on your book that is coming up. But I also know for a fact that you like some special things. I know that you have a pet. Is it a cat or a dog?
No, of course, a dog.
You have a dog. Okay, okay. I love dogs. I had a Jack Russell once, but I'm a cat person, to be
Oh,
honest.
really?
Yeah.
And then you had a dog?
I had no, I had a dog. I loved it. You know, I love dogs so much that I would never get another one because I just can't handle it. It's just too much.
Yeah.
So, you know, I stick to cats right now. I'm a cat person, which is fantastic. But you know what I mean? You have a dog. You do Western riding.
Yes.
You've been in the army. You
In the
do
Navy, please.
in the Navy. Thank you very much. In the Navy. Thank you for the correction. You are into leadership training and you talk a lot about Mitgefühl, emotion.
Yes.
Now, as a photographer, I appreciate the value of contrast, but I don't know how all these things come together. Again, emotion, Mitgefühl,
Mm.
horseback, Western horseback riding, yes, and leadership training. How do these things come together?
Should they have to come together, or could they stood next to each other?
Well, they can dance a tango.
So of course, I'm going to use my horse, for example, for horse-assisted coaching.
Ah,
That could be a little tango.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
Yeah,
Leadership and horses.
yeah. It is. I describe it as it is one piece of my toolbox. It is something very very useful to get into your Unterbewusstsein.
Your subconscious.
Yeah, to get into
Mm-hmm.
your subconscious, because a horse is a kind of mirror of your own feelings and of your own actions, and there is no need to lead for a horse. They're just reacting and reacting on what you're as a coachee doing, and it is quite impactful because of this direct feedback. And for some customers, for some coaches, I think this is quite useful. And in the beginning of a coaching, I just get the permission to decide on which tool is the best for the coachee. So it is kind of tango with a little freestyle. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I decide on which tool is the best in this situation. Which one is the best to help the coachee the best
Mm-hmm.
way it can.
Wow. Wow. I can just imagine. I've never ridden a horse. I've ridden a donkey.
Oh, it is not via riding. It is you're standing on your own feet. It's not.
Really?
It's not. Yeah, it is not. That has nothing to do with horseback riding.
So hold on, hold on. So what are you doing? Are you trying to it's just Pferdflüsterei oder wie?
No, it is nothing like this. It is more like, okay, I give you a little example at the end.
Yes.
Okay, so I got a client and who stood next to my horse, for example. And this client was the horse was the whole time am Knabbern an der
Mm-hmm.
Jacke. So
Yeah.
it was taking his teeth and just biting in his shoes at the last point. And I just asked the coachee, okay, so what is he doing with you? And he just the coachee just said, so yeah, it's kind of sweet. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to ask, okay, do you think this is sweet if other persons would do like things like this to go that close to you, for example?
Mm-hmm.
So no, that couldn't be. That's not sweet. Okay, so why do you allow the horse to get that close to you, for example? And to put a long story short, the reason behind was that this client had quite big issues in meaning things what the client was saying to the employees, for example. So very very often he was just talking about things but not really meaning this, and therefore the employees hadn't done the things he said, and these things we would never find them out without this horse assisted coaching, because those things wasn't in his mind that
Mm.
this could be an issue, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that
Understood.
was a goal changer.
Yeah. That was a wow. That was an epiphany, you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way. I thought it was something to do with the Umgang mit Macht.
No, 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 no.
I thought that's what it was about. So it's really like exploring a kind of tenderness from this symbol of power that the horse represents. You actually, wow. Yeah, okay. Well, I totally misunderstood. I'm learning something here. What is the road?
Perfect.
Yes, of course, of course, of course, of course.
Educational time in the evening.
Yes, yes. Well, we're running to the end. I found that very interesting. However, the Western riding, what is that like for you? What does it do for your soul to do that?
I like the freedom in this manner. With my horse, we're going to work with cows, for example, and it's more like it's kind of freedom of as you might have seen in the TVs, for example,
Mm-hmm.
to ride through the prairie or yeah, there is much more freedom in doing this and to have the intelligence of the horse, and I'm going to use this one and not to down level this.
Ah, okay. So you're like one with the horse, and but when I was thinking Western riding, I thought you probably did special things like jumping or turning fast or
Yeah, so
using the
yeah,
rope.
yeah, that's something in between the different specializations.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm going to do some of these things,
Mm-hmm.
but I also like to just ride through the forest, for example, with the horse and the dog.
Okay. What kind of dog do you have? Labrador
It's
Retriever.
Australian Shepherd.
Australian Shepherd. Okay. Okay. All right. I don't know. I know the Belgian Shepherd, but I don't know the
Yeah, no, it's quite an agile
more a work dog. Yeah, working
dog.
dog.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
Hütehund. I don't know what's in English.
Huta? Huta? What does that mean?
Hütehund. It's related to
Protective.
the border collie.
Ah, so it's one of the really smart ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's one
Ah.
which is working in America, for example, at the cow farms.
Okay, maybe it's a herding dog.
Yeah, it's a herding dog.
Ah, okay, fits also with the horses and the cows.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice, very nice, very nice. All right, well, you know, before we close, I definitely need to know what your latest, greatest projects are. I want to know that. Yeah,
My
and
latest great
yeah,
projects. Yeah.
yeah.
So some of them I don't, or I'm not able, or I'm not allowed, in a better way, to talk about this. But I train, for example, big companies.
Yes.
Meanwhile, in selling, what and in which way to do selling for B2B business.
B2B. Okay.
Yeah, that's one big point. And
Mm-hmm.
another great project is for a company to work with the leaders and just to find out what the best way to go back on track, for example, whatever back on track means during this process. So, and in some of them no, not countries. Oh my goodness, it's going late.
Yes.
In some of the companies,
Yes.
there is a mindset change rising
Right
to
now.
go to a more purposeful work, and we're going to work. And what are the purposes? What
Uh-huh.
are the Werte
Yes, the
which
values
the companies will stand for, will be seen for?
in the future. I actually was inviting you to, again, mention your book that I will also be promoting for you. I will be putting a link to your website, for example, in the show
Yes,
notes so people can always find you.
to the
Maybe
website.
the
And yeah, really really good to LinkedIn, for example. So if
LinkedIn
anyone
as well.
want to see some of my work
Mm-hmm.
stuffs, just follow my profile on LinkedIn.
Yes, yes. And as I said earlier, there is definitely a sense of authenticity that comes across in the short videos that you
Yeah,
do.
I
And I would
try
definitely
to send
recommend
them every Wednesday, so tomorrow is going to come up a new
another
one.
one. Good, 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 good. I like them. I watch them. And, as I say, I can sense the authenticity. I can sense when it's a show, especially with my work as a photographer, I can sense the theatric
Yeah,
very quickly. But with yours, there is a kind of an authenticity that I appreciate. And that's exactly why we're talking to each other right now. Yeah.
it was an honor to have this
Yes.
little talk.
Yeah. It was an honor for me as well. And I do look forward to further discussions. I wish you all the best. Yeah?
Thank you so much.
Yes. And yeah, what can I say? Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
All right, Jennifer. Enjoy your evening and until next time.
Yeah. Until next time.
All right then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
With a small win is always a good way to begin. Check out the show notes for this episode at www.trainingtree.de/podcast or englishcoachpodcast.com. Like it if you like it, and if you don't, lie to me. Just kidding. But still, feel free to share it with a friend, post a rating, or better yet, give meaning to the things you think about the show by using the feedback form to tell me personally what you think. This will help it to help you as it's intended to do. You can even try out the new voicemail function over there on the show notes page anywhere you see feedback. Subscribe only if you feel like, so you know when there's a new episode available. Thanks for listening. Looking forward to hearing from you, and bye for now.